Erev Tov Rabotai. One time I was talking to the Rabbi of the shul, one of the shuls, and he asked me a question. He old man, and he can't walk very well. He needs to come to the shul on Shabbat. He works there, whatever. He has a job there. So he's asking me like this, right? Can I use the elevator, to come down, because I cannot go down the stairs. He cannot walk properly. Yeah, I can't. Yeah. So he's sick, old man. So he told me, he says, what can I do? I need to come to the shul. So I said, okay, fine, I'll give you a solution, right, to this problem. So I told him, first of all, do you have like a goy there, that can help you to press the button? This is one way to do it, to tell the goy. So he told me, he says, no, I don't have a goy, over there. Okay, I said, okay, you don't have a goy. So what do? I said, what you can do is press the button, with your elbow. This, something like that, right? With a shinui. It's called shinui, kilach al yad. Right? So let me explain to you why I told him this, so you understand, right? What the idea is like this.
Doesn't get blamed.
I'm sorry?
Doesn't get blamed.
Well, that's the whole point, right? We don't want him to be blamed. So we don't want him to be blamed, right? Exactly. So the question is, how does this work, right? So the truth is, that the ma'alit, the elevator, works with electricity, right? Electricity. So now we have to know, electricity, right? Is it asur from the Torah or from the rabbis? Electricity. The rabbis, yeah. From the Torah, electricity is not asur. Why? Why is that? Because the Torah only forbade esh, forbade esh, real fire, But electricity is not really fire. It's not the same thing. So what is electricity? It's a current, which is going through the wire to make energy. But so then, what's the problem, right? If that's the case, why do we have an issue with that, right? People don't use the elevator on Shabbat. They don't use. So the question is why? So the answer is, that even though there's no fire in the electricity, what happens is when you press a button, right, and it starts to move the elevator, sparks come out of the wire. Sparks come out. This is what happens. So the question is, why are the sparks coming out? But I just told you, right, electricity is not fire. So then why are sparks coming out? Right, so some people think, since the sparks are coming out, it must be that electricity is a fire. But this is not correct. And I'll explain to you why that is. Because what happens is like this, right? Electricity is energy going through the wire. Electrons, that's what we call it in science, right? Electrons are going through the wire. But what happens is, sometimes electricity is going too strong, too fast for the wire, to pass it through. The wire is usually made out of what? Out of copper. This is like a metal which passes the electricity very good. But still, right, electricity is very strong. So the wire can't handle, the amount of current that's going in there. It cannot handle it. It's too much. So what happens is it heats up, because of that. The heat, because it cannot handle such great current going through. So what happens is, because it's heating up, right, gets hot, that's why the sparks come out, because of the heat. Understand? This is what happens. So now let's explain a little bit, right? What does that mean? That those sparks which are coming out, do we need them for anything? Do we use them for anything? Does anybody want this? No. Because the sparks are not helping the elevator to run. They're not really helping the elevator, to run. It's going to waste. They're going into the air. The sparks, not doing nothing for nobody. You understand? That's the thing. That's one thing to understand. The other thing is also that the sparks, they're not from the Torah, the prohibition of sparks, from the rabbis. Where does it say this? In many poskim, it's brought down, right? Ben Ishchai, Chazon Ish, Maran Rav Ovadia Shalom, and also Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. They all say, right, sparks are not from the Torah, the prohibition of sparks. It's not really called esh, the sparks. You know why? Why the sparks are not called esh, not called fire? Because it has no source, has no fuel. Just flies and, goes out. Like this, right? So it's not really esh. It's not real esh. And therefore they say, the Ben Ish Chai and all these rabbis I mentioned, that sparks is only from the rabbis. You know, the prohibition of the sparks. So now, right, we have a combination of things here going on. Number one is you don't want the sparks, right? Eno mitkaven. And you don't have any use for it, right? Melacha she'ena tzicha l'gufa. And also, he doesn't care about it. No, what does he gain from it? Doesn't care about the sparks. Doesn't do nothing for me, not for you, not for anybody. Understand? And also, it's a rabbinical prohibition. So therefore, all these reasons, right? This makes the prohibition really very, very, very low. There's really almost nothing left there. Prohibition. But here's the thing, on Shabbat we're machmir, because we're worried about Shabbat. You know what I mean? Shabbat is a major thing in the Torah, right? It's a major observation. But the thing is, therefore, what we do is we tell a person, listen, better to do it with a shinui, with your elbow or something, as we said, right? To press a button. Why? Because when you do it with a shinui, kila chayad, that makes the prohibition even lower, brings it down. There is a Gemara, right, in Masechet Ketubot, Daf Samech. It says over there that a person, let's say, I'll give you an example, right? He's got a cough, right? He's coughing. So what he needs to do, right? Today, what do? We have the medicine, right? The cough syrup, right? We take the cough syrup, right? For coughing. We have something for that. In those days, they didn't have cough syrup, They didn't have that. This is something new. They make it in a laboratory today, So, what they used to do, if they had a cough, you know what they did? They went to the animal, right, to the cow, and took milk, and drank. It helped them, to soothe the cough. Did they do this in Bukhara? They did this? They did? There you go, see? Okay, so, right, the thing is, that's what they used to do in the old days. Right, when somebody had a cough. Right, you have to. It's a good idea to boil it. That's a different story, right? That's because of health. But anyway, right? So says the Gemara, right? If you have a cough on Shabbat, right? You're coughing. You're not really sick, just cough. You don't have a flu or anything like that. Just a cough, discomfort, So what you can do, the Gemara says, right? Go to the animal, put your head down like this, right, and suck the milk out of the udder of the cow. You can. Huh? What can you do? You don't have. So you should buy one, buy one. God bless you. God bless you. He doesn't have, we have to buy him an animal, he should have one, We have to chip in and buy him something. Okay. God bless you. So anyway, right, as we said, right, that what you can do is go, right, and suck it out with your mouth. Why like this? Why not take a cup, and take it with a cup? Because when you do a cup, it's the normal way, right? But when you stick it out with your mouth, it's shinui. It's a different way, right? Abnormal way, not the normal way. So therefore, they allow you to do this, even though taking out the milk from the animal is isur deoraita. It's from the Torah prohibition. You know what I mean? Mefarek. It's one of the 39 labors on Shabbat. Mefarek. You know what I mean? So therefore, right? The rabbi said, do it with a shinui. Do it a different way. What does that mean? Put your mouth over there. Like this.
Rabbi,
yeah.
Wish. If I put my the thing, what do you call it? No, that electric thing. If I put a timer for Shabbat.
Yes, timer. Yes.
And
Timer.
it's wrong. It didn't turn on. I need to use the Shabbat and.
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
Why? Because it broke? It broke the timer? What? Broke?
I put the wrong time.
You put the wrong time. Oh, now I understand. Okay.
I don't know what I did, but it didn't go.
Okay.
Work. So can I use my elbow to turn it on?
Yes, same thing.
It's not a break.
But we're not talking about something which is cooking, right? Because that's already not allowed.
Just to turn
Right.
on.
Just electric, yeah, just electric. But that's why I tell people, if you want to have a better situation in your house, right, for electric, get LED lights, Don't buy the old-fashioned, tungsten, the right, incandescent. Those are more problem, for Shabbat. But when you get LED, it's not so much problem, less of a problem. So then you can do with a shinui, yes, But if it's the old style, right, it's a little bit more of a problem, the old ones, the incandescent lights. Those are very hot. It's like fire. It's like esh.
Today's days, nobody have it.
Baruch Hashem. There are still some things, they have. Some things. Still they have this, So the fluorescent is also not so good, not the best. Because it makes sparks. The best thing is LED. Change your whole house, right, to LED. Everything, all the bulbs. Because LED is much better for Shabbat.
Right. Now, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Now, sounds like if it's something coming from rabbinical law, we can break it. But
Yeah.
what I heard is since Torah given to this place, to this land, and it's rabbis are in charge right now, so they are they are dictating the law, and their right is correct.
Yeah, the rabbis are making the psak halacha. They're making the halacha, right? That's what it is.
Right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it sounds like from a lot of people say it's rabbinical. It sounds like it's like a joke.
It's still not allowed, by the way, to do something rabbinical. Not allowed. You know what it says in the Talmud, right? If you do something Yisud Rabbanan from the rabbis, rabbinical, chayav mita is liable to death for that. Liable to death. You know what I mean? So if you don't keep the laws of the rabbis, you got a big problem. You know what I mean? But here, what we're saying is you can do it because of the shinui and because of all these things that we mentioned. You understand? All these reasons. Not just to say, oh, you know what? If it's from the rabbis, I'll do it. No, chas v'shalom. Chayav mita. Person who behaves like this. You gotta watch out. It's not really like that. Okay, so anyway, right? As we're getting back to our discussion, as we said, right, that if a person does it with his elbow like that, so he can get away with this. There's also another question, right, which comes up, which is the Chazon Ish, alav shalom, right? One of the big rabbis 100 years ago. He said, right, that when you make electric current, you press a button, right, and you open the current, you're doing also prohibition of boneh, building, you're building the current inside the wall, you're building something there. So the truth is, that because of this, a lot of the Ashkenazim, they're very careful about this. They say, oh, Chazon Ish said it's building, you're building. But the truth is, most of the rabbis will argue with the Chazon Ish about this. They said it's not called building like this. That when you're building a circuit, electric by opening it. So the question is why, right? What's the reason why?
Can you explain
When you switch, right, open the switch to light the light, you're building a circuit, right, of electricity. Because what's happening is it's connecting, right? Like this. Connection. So you're building. That's what the Chazon Ish said, right? But the truth is, the rabbis didn't agree with him about this. So the question is why? Why didn't they agree with him? You know who wrote against this? Lebushe Mordechai, Chazon Ovadia, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and many rabbis, right, wrote that the Chazon Ish was not correct. What's the reason why? Because there's a Gemara in Masechet Betzah, Lamed Bet Amud Bet. Over there it says, right, that only building which is permanent is forbidden. But building which is temporary is not forbidden. You understand? So when you light a light and you go off, on, right, it's temporary, for 1 hour, 2 hours, it's temporary. Only something when you're building which is permanent, stays there like that, for a long time. Then it's called boneh, right? That's what the Gemara says. So therefore they say to the Chazon Ish, excuse me, but, this is not something permanent, this is temporary, Off, on, right? Every few hours you turn it off and on. There's nothing. That's not called building. So therefore, right, there's really no prohibition. So therefore, the bottom line is like this, Rabbi. If a person, needs to take an elevator, and he's let's say he's an old man or he's sick, whatever, he cannot go down the stairs. There's no way for him to do this, you know what I mean? So what is he going to do? Stay home all his life, not go to shul, nothing? So if he has no goy, to ask him, to do it for him, he can do it also, with a shinu, with the elbow, as we said, right, something like that, the abnormal way. Yes, of course, there is, there is a solution for this. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Tell this person, oh, okay, you know what? You can't go up the stairs anymore. Stay home all your life. Don't go to Shabbat and Shul. You can't tell a person like that. It's not proper. What is he going to do? All his life is going to stay at home. So therefore, right, and there are also one more thing I say, right? 2 seconds. That there are also some poskim who say that to do with shinui, with your elbow or whatever, right, in an abnormal way, is better than telling a goy. It's better.
Why? Because if the good does it, there's no problem.
There is a problem, but anyway, right, it's better than telling a goy. You know why? Because when you do with a shinui, it's abnormal. It doesn't look like the melacha. It doesn't look like you're doing something,
But you commit
prohibited.
sin when you do that.
I'm sorry?
I said,
That's what you're saying, but the rabbis say not like you. What can I tell you? God bless you, right? That's what it is, right? So therefore, in a case like this, when a person, cannot go up the downstairs, you cannot do this, let's see, old man, sick man, what can you do? What are you going to tell him? So therefore, right, in a case like this, for sure, we allow him to do it, and yeah, so.
Somebody should not from the Shabbat. He said, come out, okay?
So you shouldn't tell him, to do this for you.
The guy asking,
You shouldn't tell him better to do it yourself with a shinui than to tell him to do it in a normal way. Because he's a Jew. You understand? He's a Jew. You cannot tell him. He's not a goy. He's not your Shabbos goy. You know what I mean? He's a Jew. You cannot tell him to do this.
If Shabbos goy does it, it's okay?
You can tell the goy to press the button, but sometimes you don't always have a goy. Sometimes the goy is sleeping. You know what I mean? Or he went to work. You can't always find a goy for everything. So you have to also have another solution, just in case you can't find a goy. But according to this opinion, according to Ran and the Gra, they say doing with a shinu is better than telling a goy, because it's not the tzvat ha-melacha. You're not doing it the normal way, so it doesn't look like anything suspicious. Okay, Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ואמן. רבי חנינא בן שאומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לעזור לישראל, לפיכך ירבה להם תורה ומצוות של רבי חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיר תורה בידיר.